Welcome back to the channel of truth, trust, and transparency. Today, I'm going to run you through what's actually hurting your portfolio, what's actually stopping you from building a property portfolio. And I think it's something that not enough people are talking about, and everyone wants to try to point the finger elsewhere. Ladies and gentlemen, the only thing that's stopping you is actually you. It's not interest rates. It's not anything else that you want to throw into it. It might be borrowing capacity at the end, but at the very start, when you're trying to buy and build that property portfolio, the main thing that's stopping you is your indecision to take action, to block out the noise and do what you need to do to progress forward. What do I mean by that? A lot of people, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of noise, there is a lot of stuff out there. I'm one of those people on the internet that I like to think is putting out noise as well. Some noise is better than others, but a lot of people, they'll listen to something, or they'll hear a suburb, or they'll hear an area, and then they'll go down in that rabbit hole, or then they'll hear another strategy and they'll go, oh, that might suit me. And then they dive into that strategy. And then next week they hear another thing, and they just spend so much time wasting time and going down avenues that don't suit them, that aren't suited to what they need to do, or where or how they need to invest. And I wanted to break down a example. Now, CoreLogic, that's recently been rebranded to Cotality, releases a monthly chart pack, and it tells you what markets are moving and all sorts of different property data. Now, in the most recent one that I received, there were markets that in the last quarter alone, quarter being 3 months of the year, had done anywhere between 2.5% to 5.5% in growth. And I thought, wow, there's some markets moving at tremendous speed. And if you're wasting your time worrying about what everyone else is doing, and you're spending months deliberating, you're going to miss these markets. Now, let me show you an example of what I mean by this. And before we start, I've rounded the numbers up so that they're nice and easy to follow. So don't come at me if you're working through and you'll be like, oh, he's missed $6 here and stuff there. I've rounded them up to nice whole numbers, but the principle remains the same. Now, three of the most common price points for property investors that I see is that 400,000 affordable mark, that 550 mid-range, and then that 750 high end. A couple of things I want to note here. Now, at a 10% growth rate, I've done in blue. At a 20% growth rate, I've done in black. And at a 30% growth rate, I've done in red. Now, in that Cotality report that I mentioned earlier, there were markets that in the last quarter had jumped anywhere between 2.5%, which would equate to 10% per annum, or 5.5% in the last quarter. Now, I've broken up our year into into 4 quarters, as we know, 3 months a quarter, 12 months a year. Now, if you're looking to buy in that $400,000 range, and let's just say you get a pre-approval from your mortgage broker comes back, says, yeah, Dave, we've been able to get you $400,000 of borrowing capacity. And you wait 1 quarter, you wait 3 months because you deliberate, you don't know, you're thinking about and all that kind of stuff. At that 10% per annum, at that 2.5% per quarter, that property's jumped up to 410. If the property's grown at 5% in that quarter, 20% per annum, it's jumped up to 420. Or if it's a very, very hot market, 30% per annum, I'm not saying that that's normal. I'm not saying that that's standard. I'm saying that's like you're trying to buy in a very hot market. Think of Perth a few years ago, probably Melbourne in a couple of years, but you're buying in that very hot market. The properties that you're looking at for 400, 3 months later, they're at $430,000. Now, obviously, with a cheaper price point, it doesn't look that bad, but let's go up to 550, 560, 577, or 591. Think about it. If you're pre-approved for 550, right? Now that property has grown 5% in the last 3 months. It's now worth $577,000. So the difference there is $27,500 in 3 months. So it's almost $10,000 a month, which is $2.5 grand a week, my friends. And you cannot outsave the property market and the capital growth. So that's an example, right? And if you want to take that to, if you're looking at 750 and you're approved for 750, that's the top of your range. Even at even at that 10%, that 2.5% in the first quarter, it's up to 768. That's 18, 20 grand. That might be a shortfall. If your bank's only going to let you borrow 750, and now that property you're looking at is 768, 770, you could have come up with that shortfall then. If the bank will only let you borrow X amount, maybe you've worked that out off a 10% or 20% deposit, you now got to fit that bill. Now, this is why I think it's costing people. It's because people wait so long to make a decision. Oh, is it the right one? They don't know. I've even had people that email me that they want to do the course. Hey, okay, cool. Hey, let's jump on a quick call. You don't hear back from them because they think about it. Oh, I don't know. They change their mind. You're missing out these markets. Imagine you coming in Q3, even at that $400,000 mark. Q3, it's growing at 10%. It's now worth 430. You got to come up with an extra 30 grand. It gets even worse. It gets even worse if that property's growing in other value. 550. It's now worth 590. You're now in the sixes, man, because you've waited a few months. Now, if you, at the start of the year, if in January 2025, you wrote down and you said, hey, my goal for the year, I want to buy a property. If you have not done that yet, we are in that third quarter of the year. So those properties that you were looking at that amount are now going to be the blue or the red or the black. You're pricing yourself out of the market because you are not making a decision. You are second guessing yourself, probably because you don't have the confidence or the education that you need to be able to progress through. But look at what it's starting to cost you. And even if you go back and you say, oh, I can't afford this now, then you have to go back to something that's 400. That was probably 360, 370 3 months ago. And the same thing, in my opinion, is, I hear feedback from people that have paid buyer's agents, right? Some people are paying, some people are waiting 6 months. Some people are waiting 8 months for that buyer's agent, that churn and burn buyer's agent to come back to them. My friends, if you're waiting 6 months, look at where those property values will lie compared to what you were pre-approved for. Imagine if you're buying a $750,000 property in the first quarter, after the second quarter. Imagine if you're buying a $750,000 property through a buyer's agent and you were put on a wait list for 6 months. You go, look, I'm pre-approved, we've got it all ready to go, and you don't know when they're going to come up. And you have to wait. That property that you wanted to buy at $750,000, the markets are moving, man. That property's now 800 grand. $50,000 to come up with, again, in 6 months. It's 10 grand a month. It's more. It's 12 grand a month, God forbid that property, was in that warm to hot spot phase. 860, 930. You're priced out of it. You've missed the window. So this is what I say to people, and these are my key takeaways. One is you're never going to be able to outsave the property market and the capital growth and the growth that it's doing. CoreLogic latest report, there were markets at 1%, there were markets at 2.5%, there were markets at 5.5% in growth in the last quarter. You're always going to get that. You're always going to get that. You're never going to outsave the market. You think you're never going to be ready, but you need to learn by doing. You need to block out the noise. You need to be able to have your plan, have your goals in place, and stay focused on that. A lot of people, a lot of shiny things, a lot of ads, a lot of everything else is going to come through and try to distract you, but you need to stay consistent on your goal, my friends, because if you don't, and if you play into that kind of stuff and you stray left and right and you're thinking about doing this and how to make that board over here and, I want to have a look in Perth, you're going to miss the market. You're going to get timed out. You're going to get priced out of it. And then what are you going to do? Then you're probably going to waste more time and more effort and go, oh, no, we have to go into other markets now. And then you're compromising. Then you have to start your research again, because those price points that you chose for your suburbs, now you can't afford. So now you got to start the process again. Now you got to do more research. And my friends, this cycle will repeat and repeat and repeat itself. And people that I've spoken to that have been thinking about doing things, they're thinking theorists. They've been thinking about it for longer than it takes to do the thing. Set a goal. Do what you need to do, not anybody else. And your buyer's agent is taking you that long, just know that you're missing out on those great markets that are doing those numbers, because they're taking so long to be able to source for you, rather than you doing it, getting in there and finding it yourself, because they've got all those other clients in front of you. As always, guys, questions, queries, thoughts, let me know. If not, I'll see you tomorrow.